Hello, I'm William Michael. I'm the headmaster of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. And one of the most common questions that we get from homeschooling parents is whether or not the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is accredited. A homeschool parent will contact us and say, I saw one of your videos on YouTube, or a friend told me about your program, or I was reading an article or looking at your website, and I'm very impressed with this and that. And they'll go through these basic questions about where would the kids start, or how much does it cost, and things. And then always included in that mix of initial questions is, oh, and by the way, is your school accredited? And we'll see throughout the homeschool world talk about accreditation. We'll see programs advertising themselves as accredited. And I'd like to take some time, if you're willing to listen, I'd like to take some time and help parents understand that accreditation has nothing to do with homeschooling. Accreditation has nothing to do with homeschooling. If you're a homeschool family, talking about accreditation makes no sense. And so what I'd like to ask you is, first of all, why are you looking for accreditation? Why are you asking about accreditation? And I'd like you to consider what your answer to that would be and whether it would make any sense, because I'm willing to wager that your answer to that question won't make any sense as a homeschool family. Second, I'd like to ask you, accredited by whom? Accredited by whom? When you ask, is this school accredited? Accredited by whom? That's the second question. And the third question is, what is accreditation? When you ask, is the school accredited? I'd like to ask you, what is accreditation? Because I don't believe homeschool parents have answers to those questions. And I believe that homeschool programs, in order to market themselves and sell themselves to homeschool parents, often talk about accreditation and simply misrepresent the truth about what homeschool families need. And I'd like to talk about why they do that and whether you should be concerned about accreditation at all as a homeschool family. So let's just start out with, what is accreditation, okay? Education is big business. And when I talk about education, I'm talking about universities, colleges, public high schools, private schools. We're talking huge industrial level businesses. And we're talking about all kinds of funding programs, financial aid programs, grant programs, loan programs, millions and millions, if not billions of dollars in this world of education. And schools, in order to operate, they usually can't rely, modern schools can't rely on parents writing tuition checks, because there's a very small number of parents who can actually afford to write tuition checks to pay for their children's education. Education depends almost entirely on some kind of artificial sources of funding for schools to even be able to exist, because modern education, modern K-12 education, is financially unsustainable. It was designed for public schools. It assumes that there's free tax money available, and outside of that, they simply can't exist. And so what the number one concern of schools is whether or not they qualify for all different financial programs, starting with government funding and then all the way down to private funding and things like that. Accreditation is established so that the funding institutions, the funding organizations, can know that a school is accountable for the use of money. that's given to the school. So I just can't open a school and start receiving federal funding that I just, hand to my children and buy boats and vacation houses with. Accreditation is necessary for such a school because some third-party organization is going to keep an eye on our accounting and business practices, our hiring practices, diversity statistics, achievement, and we're talking about public school level, bare basic achievements to make sure that we're deserving of this funding that's coming from outside sources. That's what accreditation is for. It's to qualify a school for funding sources. So if I choose to open a school that's not accredited, that means that there's going to be none of this third-party interference. They're not going to determine what we do, how many white kids we admit, how many African Americans, how many Indians, Chinese. We're not going to deal with that stuff. We choose to be a private school. That's what private school is. We're not going to accept these sources of fundings because we don't want to be subject to regulations and standards and requirements for the funding. We choose to be private. As soon as we choose to be private, the need for accreditation simply goes away. We don't need that because we're not even applying for these sources of funding. So we don't need that accreditation because that's what it's for. It has nothing to do with the academic content of a school. It has nothing to do with the religion of a school. It has nothing to do with the quality of the culture of a school. It's simply an inspection of the basics that are required for a school to qualify for funding. That's what it's about. It's about money. That's what accreditation is for. And we can see that where there is federal funding and millions of dollars or thousands of dollars being moved around, it's good for a school handling that kind of money to be accountable to some outside inspector for the sake of financial accountability. That's what accreditation is for, okay? Now, when we say a school is accredited, and I'm going to use an example. I'm going to use Seton Home Study, which is widely known among Catholic homeschool families. And one of the reasons it's sought after by homeschool families is because they advertise that they're accredited. And so homeschool families act, I think, without questioning themselves. They act like, oh, that must be important. This homeschool program is accredited, so it must be good. And they like Seton because they claim to be accredited. So what I'd like to do is take a look at Seton's information about accreditation. And I'd like to ask you, what is the point of accreditation for a homeschool program? Okay? Now, as a homeschool family, as a homeschool, you are registered with your state as a home school. The reason why you're registered as a home school is because you, the parents, are the administrators of your own school, and it's a school for your own children. That is a legally recognized school. It's just as legitimate as the local public school, the local Catholic school, any local private schools. Your home school is a legal school. It's one form of legally recognized schooling. You are the administrator of that school, just as the local principal is the administrator of the high school. You are the administrator of your home school. So before we even talk about accreditation, you have to understand that you don't need to enroll in any school program to homeschool your children. Your home school is a school. You, as the administrator of your home school, have the authority to give your children high school diplomas, to give your children report cards, to give your children transcripts. You can sit down, open Microsoft Word, and type up a transcript and give it to your child, and that's a legal school transcript, period. It's hard for homeschool families to understand that. It's hard for homeschool parents to understand how much power the states give them over the education of their children. And it's an amazing provision that we enjoy. But you are able, like I said, to open Microsoft Word and type up a transcript, type up a report card, and give it to your child and say, there, that's your high school transcript. That's your report card. That's your high school diploma. And that's it. That's it. That's what homeschooling is. You as a homeschool parent have the authority to do that. And it's completely legitimate. Now, many homeschool parents either don't understand that. I think most of them don't really understand that. They don't understand that, or they simply don't believe that they are capable of managing a homeschool, which is really not true. And so they look for some outside source. But they still don't really understand what homeschooling is, because when they look at something like Seton, they see that it's accredited. But still, the question is, your children are enrolled in your home school. This accreditation really has nothing to do with your children's education. And it's not necessary. It's not necessary. It's not required by anyone. And I'm going to prove that to you in a few minutes if you stick with me here. But if you go to Seton and you say, well, we're looking for a homeschool curriculum. We would like a program to use in our homeschool. Okay, that makes sense, right? Because you may say, I can't make my own study materials. I can't make my own curriculum. I would like a source for a curriculum and study materials and things like that. I'd like some help. So where can I find this help? And you think, well, there are some homeschool programs and publishers and things like that. There are different ones. The Classical Liberal Arts Academy, which I run, is one such program. We simply help homeschool parents educate their children. If they share our beliefs and our goals, we help them. We offer tutoring services. We offer assignment grading. We offer curriculum resources. We keep all their records, on and on. We keep all of these services that we offer to help homeschool families. That's what we do. Seton is another such program. But Seton oddly advertises itself as an accredited school. And there's this weird situation where, are you a homeschool family or are you enrolled in a school? Your children don't attend a school, really. And so Seton presents itself as a school even though you already are a school. You have no need of a school. You're a homeschool family. You are a school. And so there's this weird situation with Seton where they present themselves as a school, as if you're enrolling in a school, which is really not true if you get into it. And they advertise that they're an accredited school. And we have to ask, what does that even mean? Because remember, before you get lost in this talk about school and accreditation, remember, you already are a school. That's why you're registered with the state. You're registered as a home school. You are a school already. You don't need to enroll your children in a school. No one is asking you to do that. So what does this even mean that it's accredited? Okay, let's take a look at what this means. Let me scroll up to the top here. The Seton Homeschool Program says that they are accredited. Seton Home Study School is accredited by the Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools, which is recognized by the United States Department of Education. They advertise that on their website. And let me ask you this question. Who cares? What does that have to do with homeschooling? Who has ever told you that you need to make sure that you are accredited by the Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools, or that you're accountable to the U.S. Department of Education. As a homeschool family, you're not. You have nothing to do with the U.S. Department of Education. It has nothing to do with your homeschool. What do you have to do with the Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools? And besides, what in the world is the Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools? And who cares if a program is accredited by some random organization? Do you care about the local public schools in your area? Do you think anything special of them? Because they're all accredited by these same organizations. What does that prove about the local public school? Would you send your children there? Why are you homeschooling in the first place if you're surrounded by accredited schools? You see, this doesn't make any sense. It's not like they're accredited by the Vatican. That would be significant. If a Catholic study program was accredited by the Pope, I would think that would be significant. Okay, or by the U.S. Council of Catholic Bishops. They came and inspected our curriculum and they accredited our program. As a Catholic parent, you'd say, wow, this is actually accredited by the bishops of the Catholic Church or by the Pope. Well, that's not what, this is secular accreditation. The same accreditation that has approved the public schools all around you, which you're not sending your children to in the first place. So why, if you're not impressed with the local schools, which are all accredited, why would you suddenly be impressed with a homeschool program that boasts the accreditation of the local public schools? It's meaningless. It has nothing to do with homeschooling, and you shouldn't be concerned about this. So they're accredited by a secular accreditation agency that they don't need to be accredited by. And so we have to ask, why are they even accredited? Why would it even matter? No one is asking them to be accredited. So they go down and they say, is Seton accredited? Yes. Seton Home Study School is accredited by the Middle States Association of College and Schools, which is recognized by the United States Department of Education. It's all meaningless because our homeschools don't need to be accredited. They're already approved by the state. That's why we register our homeschool with the state. So then Seton explains, what does accreditation mean? Accreditation means that Seton Home Study School has been inspected by an outside independent agency. Okay, but we really don't care about this outside independent agency, and this outside independent agency is the same agency that inspects the public schools. It's not like it's some impressive, trustworthy organization. It's just a public, educational, secular accreditation agency. And this agency has determined that Seton meets accepted standards for schools. And now let's look at what kind of standards these are. And we'll examine this a little bit further on. These standards include standards regarding the seriousness of our course studies. I don't know what kind of qualification seriousness is. Seriousness of course studies. Handling of academic records, accounting practices, and business practices. So in other words, as I said before, Seton is inspected by an agency that says they follow requirements for accounting and business practices, keeping academic records, and then there's this, seriousness of our course studies. This is modern school jargon. And as I said, the purpose of accreditation, the real purpose, has to do with qualifying for outside sources of funding. That's why it's concerned with records, accounting practices, business practices, and things like that. It has nothing to do with academic quality. It has nothing to do with being a quality academic program. And so really this accreditation, as far as you're concerned as a parent, is meaningless. Do you really care what Seton Home Studies accounting practices look like or business practices? These things are already accountable to laws. I run the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. It's a for-profit private business. If I do anything shady, I'm going to be in trouble with the IRS and the state government. There are already checks and inspections for legal accounting and business practices that we're all accountable to. So why would anyone care to know about the accreditation of the accounting and business practices or record keeping of Seton Homeschool, or the seriousness of their course studies? And again, if you're going to suggest that accreditation is some mark of real value and significance, the public schools are accredited. So whatever we pretend this means, the same thing is going to be true of the local public school. Why don't you send your kids to the local public school? It's accredited. Because you don't care about that. You don't care about their accounting practices or their business practices or how they keep records. You really don't care about the seriousness of their course studies. No one cares about that. So why would anyone care that a homeschool organization receives some, and I should say pursues some, because you have to pay for this, pursues some secular accreditation that has nothing to do with Catholic education? Well, Seton goes on and explains, and they say, well, why is accreditation important? Why even seek accreditation? And I'd like to ask you, do you think that these things are important as a homeschool parent? Do you think these things are important? And even more, are these claims true? Can we test these claims about why accreditation is important? And will they be found to be true? Let's take a look. Accreditation is important for several reasons. First, you know that an accredited school has submitted to a detailed inspection by an objective agency. You have no idea what that inspection consists of, and you don't know anything about this agency. And even if you did, why would you find it impressive? It's a secular agency that approves of all of the public schools around you. Do you find them impressive? Are you excited to learn that the local public school is accredited by this organization? No. So why would you be impressed that a homeschool program was accredited by this program? It has nothing to do with Catholic homeschooling. Besides this inspection, the school is required to follow accepted educational practices established by the accrediting agency. Do you believe in these quote-unquote accepted educational practices established by a secular accrediting agency? Do you even know what that means? If not, why would you care if a school has this accreditation? And again, if this is impressive, then the local public schools must be impressive because they have this accreditation. You know, it goes on to say, that the school has met standards and must continue to meet standards to maintain its accreditation, but you have no idea what those standards are or whether they're even relevant for Catholic homeschooling. And again, these standards are also met and maintained by your local public schools. An accredited school cannot be a quote-unquote fly-by-night operation or diploma mill. An accredited school is a bona fide, high-quality educational institution. Do you believe that that's true? Your local public school is an accredited school. Is it a bona fide, high-quality educational institution? No, not at all. That's why you're homeschooling. Accreditation does not prove that a school is a high-quality educational institution. All that accreditation proves is that a certain school follows minimum standards that are established by this secular accrediting agency, which are usually intended to make sure that a school qualifies for government funding, as I've said. Accreditation in no way proves that a school is a bona fide, high-quality educational institution. If that was true, and if you believed that for 1 second, you would have your kids in the local public school. So you don't believe that accreditation is proof that a school is a high-quality educational institution. You don't believe that being a high-quality educational institution has anything to do with a school's accounting measures or practices, business practices, record-keeping practices, and you don't even know what it means that it has serious, what did it say? The seriousness of course studies. That's just jibber-jabber. Okay, so no one believes, or no one should believe, that because a school receives this accreditation, that school is a high-quality educational institution. It means that school qualifies to receive outside funding. That's all that it means. It means it satisfies the requirements that are set by the U.S. Department of Education to receive government funding. That's what the U.S. Department of Education is interested in the first place, making sure schools qualify for the funding that they receive. The schools are accountable to an outside inspector to make sure that the money that's being given to the school is being used to actually educate the children. That's what the accreditation is necessary for. That's what secular education accreditation is for. It has nothing to do with Catholic homeschooling. And no one believes that a school program that receives accreditation from the Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools is therefore a bona fide, high-quality educational institution. No one believes that. And I can prove this to you by showing you that the public high school that I attended as a kid is accredited by this same organization. Was that a high-quality educational institution? No, not at all. So the first claim is that you as a parent can know that a school is a bona fide, high-quality educational institution when you learn that it's accredited. And I would say that you don't even agree with that. I don't believe you agree with that. If you're a homeschooling family, you do not believe that secular accreditation proves that a school is a high-quality educational institution. Am I wrong about that, or am I right? I think I'm right. You don't believe that. So let's go on to the second argument. Why is accreditation important? Second, it is much easier to transfer credits from an accredited school than a non-accredited school. Are you interested in transferring credits from one school to another, or are you a homeschooling family? A student who receives high school credits from Seton knows that these credits are backed by the prestige of the accrediting agency. We cannot guarantee that other schools will accept Seton credits. However, accredited schools do routinely accept credits from other accredited schools. Schools are much less likely to accept credits from non-accredited schools. Now, what this is talking about is if you choose to homeschool your children, but then 2 years down the road, you decide to send everybody to school, and you're worried about whether or not Tommy's homeschool algebra class will transfer to the new high school and be accepted, well, then accreditation is helpful. Are you planning to do that? Are you planning to homeschool your kids and then send them to another school? Because this is not talking about credits being accepted by colleges. I think maybe some parents read that and they think somehow your high school studies, if they're not at an accredited school, won't transfer. That's not what this is talking about. This is talking about you deciding to send your homeschooled student to a school and having the quote-unquote credits transfer to that school. First of all, are you planning to do that? Are you planning to send your homeschool student back to the public school? I would hope that you're not planning to do that. And maybe the fact that someone who has their children enrolled in Seton would then be interested in sending their kids back to school is a sign that something's wrong. I wouldn't want to be telling people how to send their children back to school after they've used my homeschool program. I would hope that that never happens. Is that a concern of yours? That your homeschool credits, again, what does that even mean? Will transfer when you send your children to some other school? I don't think that that is a concern for most homeschool families. So why would anyone care? Again, this second reason makes no sense if we're committed to homeschooling. And notice it explains in the beginning, it's easier to transfer credits. It doesn't say it's necessary to be accredited. If you were to contact your local public school for whatever reason and say, you know what, we're a homeschooling family, we'd like to send our kids to the public school, they're just going to place them into the school, and that's going to be that. So if I did it when my child was a junior, for example, my son would be enrolled in the high school his junior and senior years. He would have a high school transcript for his freshman and sophomore years, and he would have a public school transcript for his junior and senior years. The high school is not going to take the courses off your homeschool record and put them on a high school transcript. You would have two different transcripts. You would have your homeschool transcript and the public high school transcript, and they both would be sent with your college application. So what are we even talking about? Having credits transfer from one school to another. Are you really concerned with that? I don't think you are. And if you are, why? Why are you concerned with sending your kids, your homeschool kids, to a school? It doesn't make any sense. Who cares if accredited schools prefer students from accredited schools? Who cares about that? I don't care about that. And if you do, well, then maybe you should go and get ready to send your kids back to another school. But I don't know why a homeschool family would be interested in doing that. There's no need to do that, no reason to do that. Thirdly, let's keep going. Accreditation is especially important when applying to college. Now, this is what I think has homeschool parents concerned. Accreditation, Seton says, accreditation is especially important when applying to college. This is what I think most parents are concerned about. They think that if they homeschool their children will apply to college, and the colleges will be like, what's this? What is this goofy homeschool? And the colleges will dismiss it as, some kind of fake education. So Seton says accreditation is especially important when applying to college. And listen to these claims, because we're going to test them in a minute. Credits from an accredited school will, notice what it says, likely, It doesn't assure you that this is true because it can't assure you because it's actually false. Credits from an accredited school will likely be viewed as much more important than credits from a non-accredited school. Now, if your homeschool is a non-accredited school, Seton is telling you that a college will not recognize or respect a homeschool education, but they will give more respect to an accredited school. The reason is simple. Colleges know that accredited schools maintain accepted standards. Colleges know nothing about credits from a non-accredited school. Now, those assertions are made, and they're completely false. They're completely false. Accreditation is not necessary when applying to college. Colleges are not concerned with accreditation at all. How can I prove that? Well, what I did when I started to see that Seton Homeschool was telling parents this, being the administrator of a homeschool myself as a father, but also of a homeschool program, I decided to get in touch with the admissions representatives of the most selective colleges in America. And I sent a bunch of messages and asked them to clarify this for us. Is this true? Is it true that credits from an accredited school will be viewed as much more important than credits from a non-accredited school? So I asked, and I received answers back from all the schools, and I posted this article. It's on the Academy website titled, "Homeschool Accreditation is Not Necessary." And I share in this article the responses of the colleges. So first of all, let's consider a Catholic college, Catholic University of America, the oldest and probably most well-known Catholic college in America. What do they say? Do they agree with Seton that credits from an accredited high school program are important and credits from a non-accredited high school program are less important? No, they don't believe that or teach that at all. They wrote back to me, "Dear William, we do not require our homeschooled applicants to be part of an accredited program." And this is from the admissions office at Catholic University of America. So is it true that accreditation is necessary for college admission? We do not require homeschooled applicants to be a part of an accredited program. So that is demonstrably false. Accreditation has nothing to do with college admission because homeschooling is legitimate by itself. There's no need for accreditation. It doesn't even make any sense for homeschooling to be accredited. Well, how about the Ivy League schools, the most selective schools in the whole world? Surely they must say, get out of here with this homeschool nonsense, right? We only accept kids from accredited schools. No, that's not true at all. Princeton University. Dear Mr. Michael, homeschool programs do not need to be accredited for us to review an application. Some families will go through a formal accrediting process with their home state, but since there are so many ways to pursue homeschooling, we do not require the program to be accredited. That's from Princeton University. It's not true. Your homeschool does not need to be accredited to apply for admission, even to an Ivy League university. It's simply not true. How about Duke University, another one of the best and most selective colleges in the country, down here in North Carolina. Duke welcomes applications from students who are educated in alternative ways, such as homeschooling and online schooling. Applicants are not required to present proof of accreditation, not even part of the application process. From Duke University. Well, here's another one. Let's say, well, you know what? They're like liberal arts colleges, Princeton, Duke. Maybe they don't care about that stuff. But what about a technical college? What about a modern, science or mathematics-based, engineering-based university? Maybe they're the ones that will penalize you if you're not in an accredited school. Well, I wrote to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, probably the top college, definitely top technical school in the country, if not in the world. What did they have to say? Hi, William. We do not have separate requirements for homeschooled applicants. We do not have separate requirements for homeschooled applicants. Homeschooled applicants, like all of our applicants, are considered within their context, which includes schooling choice, family situation, geographic location, resources, opportunities, and challenges. However, we do have some qualities we look for in homeschooled students based on successful applicants we have admitted in the past. And you can get that kind of information because they talk about it all the time, and maybe I'll even show you some. So that's from MIT admissions. The point here is that this claim that accreditation is necessary for college admission is just demonstrably false. It's not true. Colleges do not require any accreditation of a homeschool program. It really doesn't even make any sense because it's a homeschool. So I can prove that this claim that Seton makes, that accreditation is important when applying to college, is simply not true. So these three claims for why accreditation is important. The first is that you as a parent can be assured that any accredited school is a bona fide high-quality educational institution. Nobody believes that. If you did, the public school would be such an institution. Nobody believes that. Secondly, if you're planning to have your kids transfer to another school, then maybe something might be made easier if they're coming from a so-called accredited school. But who's planning to do that? I'm not, as a homeschooling parent. Are you planning to bounce your kids all over the place, and you're concerned that every time you turn their education upside down and start them all over again, that their credits transfer and things like that? I don't think homeschool families are concerned with that. And thirdly, that it's important for applying to college, that's simply false. I already proved that that's false. Let's take a look at something here. Bear with me as I just search. Let's just go look at Harvard admissions real quick. Harvard admissions. And the only reason I'm looking at Harvard is because this is the most selective college in the world. So surely the standards for Harvard would exceed any admission standards for any smaller Catholic college or any local college. All right? If you look on here, what admissions criteria do you use? And are there secondary school course requirements for admission? All right, so let's look at what admissions criteria. There is no formula for gaining admission to Harvard. Academic accomplishment is important, but the admissions committee also considers many other criteria, such as community involvement, leadership and distinction in extracurricular activities, personal qualities, and character. We rely on teachers, counselors, and alumni to share information with us about an applicant's strength of character, his or her ability to overcome adversity, and other personal qualities. No one cares about accreditation. Accreditation is for money. It has nothing to do with college admission. Are there secondary course requirements for admission? There is no single academic path we expect all students to follow. The strongest applicants take the most rigorous secondary school curricula available to them. Now let me ask you, do you think that Seton Home Study offers the most rigorous secondary school curricula available? Would you like to compare it to the Classical Liberal Arts Academy? An ideal 4-year preparatory program includes 4 years of English with extensive practice in writing, 4 years of math, 4 years of science, and they give you biology, chemistry, physics, and an advanced course in one of those subjects, 3 years of history, including American and European, and 4 years of one foreign language. What does accreditation have to do with any of that? Nothing. And if you don't believe me, Seton admits it. Right here on the Seton page, it says, does accreditation influence the content of your curriculum? No. Accrediting agencies do not tell schools what to teach. It has nothing to do with the content of the school program. It has nothing to do because, as I said, accreditation is not academic. It's institutional. It's financial. It has nothing to do with the quality of education. And going back to Harvard, what is Harvard interested in? Harvard doesn't care about your accounting practices at your school or your business practices or your record keeping. Harvard is concerned with the content of your education, with your personal character and recommendations that you can bring from other significant people. It has nothing to do with accreditation. And so this talk is just imaginary. So let's go a little further here. I want to go a little further into the application. How to apply. What I want to see is if I can find some information about homeschooling or how to prepare. Just give me a second here to find something. Back to the admissions. I don't want statistics. Just a second. Harvard admissions, what we look for. Let's try that. If you go, again, what we look for, Harvard gives us a whole list of questions, the kinds of things that they're concerned with. And look at them. Personal character, how you can contribute to the Harvard community. And then it gets into the application. But back up here, growth and potential. Have you reached your maximum academic potential? Have you been stretching yourself? How have you used your time? Do you have initiative? Are you a self-starter? These are the kinds of questions that they ask. They're not concerned with accreditation. And if you believe that they are they just lying to us here and telling us that they're interested in all of these things? What are your interests? What kind of activities are you participating in? Do you have any genuine commitment or leadership role in those activities? They're not concerned with accreditation. That's just a bunch of baloney that places like Seton are telling parents because they're sort of taking advantage of their anxieties about homeschooling and college admission. And Harvard doesn't care about those things. These schools don't care about your accreditation. And we've seen this. What I wanted to see here, learn about what we look for. Let me just look at one more thing. First-year applicants. They usually have information for homeschool students. Here you go, right here. What if I'm homeschooled? What if I'm homeschooled? So let's take a look at what the most selective college in the world says about homeschooled students. Each applicant to Harvard College is considered with great care. Homeschooled applicants are treated the same as all other applicants. There's no special process. All relevant information about your educational and personal background is welcome. In addition to the application, all applicants are required to submit a transcript. You may create your own. You may create your own transcript. Harvard knows that. That's what homeschooling is. You may create your own transcript. And recommendations. So they're going to look for recommendations that other people, not some secular accrediting agency, but teachers, counselors, your pastor, people like that, people that are significant in considering whether you should be admitted to a school. That's what they're going to look for. They mentioned earlier alumni recommendations. So if you have an uncle who went to this college and he writes you a personal recommendation, that's significant because the university knows that your uncle knows what it's like to be a student at this school. And he says, yes, Tommy will be great at the school. And he can say that as an experienced alumnus. So you just see, Harvard is not looking for this cheesy secular accreditation. They're looking at the student. They're looking for real character traits, real academic achievement, initiative, leadership, things like that. They're not playing some silly game looking for accreditation. That's just institutional nonsense. That's the kind of stuff the public schools talk about because they have nothing significant to offer. Harvard doesn't care. You can create your own transcript as a homeschool family and apply to Harvard because that's what it means to be homeschooled. So this talk of accreditation is just a bunch of baloney. And when we go back to Seton, you can see that this statement, accreditation is important when applying to college, it's just flat out false advertising. The colleges don't care. I mean, do the statements from the college admissions departments, does the admission information on the Harvard website not convince you that accreditation is nowhere mentioned as an important part of the consideration of any applicants for admission? It has nothing to do with admission. That's why in this article that I wrote, which I encourage you to read, which you may not really need to read after watching this video, but I explain this. I explain that it makes no sense for homeschool families to be concerned with accreditation. Any claim that colleges require it is just demonstrably false. And what that does is it frees us from this anxiety, this worry that if we homeschool our children, it's going to be held against them. I have 3 adult children in college. No one ever said a word about being homeschooled. We prepared their transcripts. We prepared, all of their study materials. We taught them at home. We taught them what we wanted them to learn, how we wanted them to learn it. We were registered as a homeschool with our state. We, like Harvard says, we created our own transcript, which I'm happy to share if you'd like to see it. And our children applied to college and were admitted. There was no problem. The local college, they saw that our son David in our homeschool completed algebra and geometry, and they marked him when he applied to get started with studies. They marked him as being done with those courses, and he went right into statistics in college. No one contacted us and asked for accreditation information. No one is looking for that. No one's looking for that. And this talk is just false. You don't need accreditation. As a Catholic homeschooling family, there are requirements for homeschooling. Your state makes them known, what they are. In our state, we have to register with the state. We have to subject our kids to standardized testing, which the state doesn't even look at or collect. They just would like us to have it on file. And that's it. In other states, they have other requirements, and you just have to learn what those requirements are and submit to those requirements. And if you're approved as a homeschool family in your state, that is all the quote-unquote accreditation that you need. That's the point of those requirements. You're a legitimate Homeschool family. You have your own school. You're a homeschool. And you as a parent are the administrator of that homeschool. You don't need anyone to come and inspect your homeschool. Who cares what Seton's accounting and businesses practice? What does that have to do with your education? Absolutely nothing. Accreditation has nothing to do with the content of the curriculum. Seton admits that right on their own site. Accrediting agencies do not tell schools what to teach. If that's true, then how can they judge that any school provides a high quality program? It's not even what accreditation is concerned with. It's not even what accreditation is about. They try to ensure that schools teach what they say they teach and provide a high quality program. Well, they approve of all of the local public schools. So whatever the accreditation does prove, it's true of the local public school. There's nothing to admire in accreditation. It's not necessary for homeschooling. And if you're worried about college admission, my kids went into the military after homeschool. Homeschool transcripts received right in by the U.S. military. No problem, no problem. Never a question. All that they did, I did get one thing from the military. When our children joined the reserves, my three eldest children joined the reserves and then went to college in the ROTC program. At least my oldest two did. When they applied to enter the military, the military sent me a letter because I am the administrator of the homeschool, and they simply asked me to confirm that this prospective soldier did in fact attend my school. And all I had to do is confirm that they did attend my school and that the record is legitimate. That was it. That's what was required. Just a confirmation that the student's record was accurate and he did in fact attend this school, which was my home school. That's all that no one ever asked about the content of the courses or what was studied or how were they graded or how were they assessed. No one cares. It's a home school. They're your kids. And besides, there are other things that the colleges are concerned with, the most selective colleges, other things they're concerned with that they're going to use to evaluate your child. What other activities does the child do? Does the child have any leadership experience? They can look at standardized test scores. Not even that's required anymore. But they can look at SAT or ACT scores and confirm that at least the basic education has been covered. But there are ways, these college admission boards are not dumb. They do this full time, all day, every day. They know how to assess the quality of students. Students have to write admission essays. They may have interviews. There are standardized tests. There are recommendation letters they're going to have to provide. They're going to look at activities and things students do outside of their studies. They're looking at the whole picture. They're not concerned with accreditation of a school. Private schools don't even seek accreditation. Homeschools don't even require accreditation. Accreditation is for funding. Accreditation is about funding. It has nothing to do with academics. And so this whole big deal about being accredited is irrelevant to your homeschool students. It has nothing to do with homeschooling and is a big waste of time. So to wrap up here, I hope that I've persuaded you as a homeschool parent that as long as your homeschool is registered with your state and you follow the state laws for what's required in homeschooling. And remember, Jesus said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. So when the state makes demands, when the state sets requirements that are based on minimum standards, you have no excuse but to fulfill and observe those standards. That's the only thing you need to do as a homeschool family. And in some states, those standards are minimal. In some states, they may look a little more significant, and you may need help. If you do need help, just contact us and ask us. We can help you understand how our program works with those requirements, or make suggestions about how you can satisfy this or that goofy thing that you're asked to do. It's not a problem at all. But there's absolutely no need for accreditation in homeschooling. And what you've got to ask is, if this is the case, if this is true, what I've said, if the Catholic University of America, Princeton, Harvard, Duke, MIT, on and on, if they don't care about accreditation, why in the world would some school program be making such a big fuss about accreditation? And here's the answer: because they have nothing else to offer to commend themselves. This is what they hope will close the deal with some ignorant, anxious homeschool parent that doesn't know what they're doing. They hope that flashing this accreditation information and telling the parents, oh, well, if you're accredited, that means you're a high-quality educational institution. Oh, well, if you're accredited, then your students are more readily accepted into colleges than other. You might, if you're not accredited, your kids might not get into baloney. It's all baloney. We've proven that that's baloney. And they're doing this because their program doesn't have much to commend itself. They're offering a bare bones, modern, public school curriculum that's just dressed up with some Catholic information, which is fine. That's fine. If that's what you're looking for, go get it. But if you want to give your child more, which, remember, is what Harvard is looking for, Harvard wants students that stretch themselves, that seek the most rigorous curriculum available. They're not looking for the cookie-cutter modern high school program that's the same at every school. That's not even what they're looking for. The colleges are urging families, do more, do more, do more. And these schools are telling parents, oh, if you don't have accreditation, you're going to get in trouble. And it's not even true. It's not true. The colleges are saying, do more. Don't worry about these modern high school programs with their bare minimum requirements. That's not what students are being urged to do. Students are being urged to pursue their interests, pursue their activities, develop their character, become useful members of a community, pursue the hardest possible studies, the most challenging studies you can find. That's what the colleges are actually saying to the families. But the families are reading this jibber-jabber and doing the opposite. That's why when we look at the Seton program, we look down here, I think it's on this front page. I'll wrap up with this. Academics, I don't know if high school, here we go. I think they have on here their SAT scores. The national average is 1060, so around 1100. The Seton average is just under 1200. So let me just put this in perspective. When I taught SAT prep in private schools, I was trained by Princeton Review. We guaranteed students that if they studied with us for just a couple weeks, really, we could raise their SAT score by 100 points. It was easy, no problem. Basic introduction to the SAT will raise your score 100 points. Seton is 100 points higher than the national average for the SAT. So for all of its accreditation and Catholic identity and all this kind of stuff, it offers the same advantage with SAT scores as a Princeton Review prep course would offer. That's it. It's hardly better than an average public school education. And it's just ridiculous. And so the reason why they talk so much about accreditation is because they have to. Now, in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, think of how different our message is. We teach the actual course of studies that was studied and taught by wise men and saints all through church history. Does Seton do that? No, they don't do that. They advertise as being accredited by some secular organization. Who cares about that? I'm not homeschooling so my kids can look like public school kids. I'm homeschooling because I want my children to study the subjects that wise men and saints studied and taught and tell us to study. That's why I homeschool. So if I'm going to advertise the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, I'm not going to say, oh, you know why you should sign up for the Classical Liberal Arts Academy with your Catholic homeschool because our SAT scores are a little bit higher than the public. Who cares about that? The SAT scores aren't even required for admission to college right now. Who cares? Nobody's asking about SAT scores. Oh, well, our program is no one cares about accreditation. No one's asking whether your school is accredited. What they are asking is, are you seeking the most rigorous course of studies available to you? Are you seeking to become a great, generous, self-starting contributor to your community? What do you want to be doing in 20 years? What steps have you taken to move towards those goals? That's the kind of stuff that selective colleges are looking for. They're looking for classical Catholic education for a Catholic student who's not ashamed to apply to college and say, hey, you know what? You know what I bring to the diverse campus community? I bring a devout Catholic life. I bring classical philosophy and classical languages. That's what I bring. That's what the colleges are looking for. They embrace diversity. They're not looking for carbon copy kids. They're looking to make the best, most diverse, interesting, dynamic campus community that they can. And Catholic kids should be saying, hey, here I am. I bet you don't have anything like me on campus. That's what Catholic kids should be saying as they apply to college. Not cowering behind public school standards and accreditation. That's got nothing to do with homeschooling, and you know that. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up there, but I think that I've made it sufficiently clear that accreditation is not only unnecessary for homeschooling, but if that's what you're thinking about, you've got your mind set on the wrong things. I invite you to learn more about the Classical Liberal Arts Academy and pursue a classical Catholic education with your kids with no worries about college admission and things like that. Do they need to study math? Yeah, they do. We saw that in the Harvard requirements, right? 3-4 years of math, 3-4 years of science, 3-4 years of English and foreign language. All of that's provided for and covered in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. There's no need to abandon classical Catholic studies for those requirements. They're not hard. You can have all of that in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy and a million times more by adding classical Catholic studies to those modern high school studies. So visit the Academy website, get in touch, watch videos, learn more, and let the facts do the talking and not this marketing material. You don't need to have your homeschool accredited. You're free to pursue the best, most faithful, unapologetic Catholic education you can in your homeschool, and no one's going to penalize you for it. I hope that's helpful. God bless.